And I think, again, you can't ever see this when you're that young provider, but I've had the experience too of we forget of how we got to our position and think that everybody else somehow didn't follow the same path. Nobody got hired to coach the Seattle Seahawks. So Pete Carroll didn't get hired the Seahawks as his first coaching job. He had
Right.
been at SC, and before that, he'd been a lot of places, right, and developed. And the same goes for us. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a call from hey, I was the assistant trainer. You probably don't remember me. I was the assistant trainer at name a professional team. I was the assistant trainer at the Seahawks. You came in and did FMS with us. Now I'm the head trainer of,
Oh yeah.
over at the Dodgers. And I was wondering if, and we have a player that lives in your area. We were wondering if you would take care of him, right?
Yeah, that is so true. The amount of times that, like I've got a guy that worked for me as an athletic trainer. He was my employee. I contracted him out to our local high school. He's on an NBA roster now. He's been their head trainer for probably 15 years now. And so, that just over time, the young ones come up, right? And so,
I taught
it's
I taught SFMA class with a guy named Brandon Gillum who was bumping around and finally he worked with this basketball team. I can't remember what their name. Oh, the Miami Heat as their head of player performance. And, they had a player at the time, Libran or name started with an L. I
what
can't
name?
remember.
The Ohio guy, I think he's from.
Yeah, he's doing okay in basketball, but and the same thing goes with these players. Like, how many players in your career, Dan, did you work with as a high school nobody, and then they ended up going to college and developing into a superstar, and then getting recruited, and now they're professional, and they're like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember, you helped me out with my ankle sprain when I was 15.
Yeah.
Would you help keep my pitching arm healthy now that I'm 30?"
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really cool, actually. That's one of the things I think is really a sign of success is how many people did you help get to that level? I mean, if a pro walks into my door right now, he's already a pro athlete or she's already a
Mhm.
pro athlete, right? So they're already elite. But when they were 14 and going through puberty and awkward, they weren't elite. Somebody had to teach that kid how to move, how to get cross-body patterns, how to link your arm through your core into your leg, blah, blah, blah. And when you're that person, they remember you. And what I personally do too is if there's a kid that I remember and I see any recognition, I reach out and I text them and I say, hey, congrats. I saw you were player of the week in your conference, or hey, cool. I heard you got picked up from, so-and-so community college up to such and such four-year college or whatever it might be. And you send the message to them that they weren't just a number when they were in office. You're somebody you care about. And a lot of times I'll text their parents because as a parent, I'd much rather see my kids succeed than me. That means more to me.
Right.
And so I
Yeah.
like to them, like, how cool is that? Look what he did. Remember when, right? And
Yeah, if you got all Valley, physical therapists, you're not blown away, right? You're not
right.
asking your wife to go to a special dinner,
Yeah,
but seeing your patient get all Valley, third baseman, you're like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Speaking back to the trust aspect, what are some other, maybe commonalities you see of people that have done a really good job of building trust in their careers? What observations have you made? So before we recorded, I said, I am always impressed with like Dr. Greg Rose, who we both know, Kyle Kiesel, who we both know, that they will enter 1,000 conversations. And my perspective is they have this thought of this may be a key conversation. I'm going to treat it as gold. And they'll let the person in front of them convince them otherwise, which must happen to them,
Right.
1,000 times a week. It's totally,
For sure.
but they don't ever approach it cocky. They don't ever start off going, I already know more than you, which they probably do. Like, they're some of the most educated
Probably.
people around, but they
But
never
they never
start.
know and you never know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Do
think
you
it's
notice
just
some other commonalities in the trainers you work
I'll
with, the professional, people at professional
yeah.
sports teams and stuff?
Yeah, actually, I'll throw it out to a friend of mine who will never see or hear this, but his name is Stan Herring, and he's a former team doc for both the Seahawks and the Mariners. Still with the Seahawks in some capacity, I believe. Head of everything sports medicine in Seattle through the University of Washington, and everything. He co-authored the Zachary Lystead law in the state of Washington, which is the very first law in the United States for youth concussion. And that was the model that now all 50 states have one of the same, modeled on the one that he
Yeah.
co-authored. The guy's a stud among studs. His CV is 20 pages long, and you could not meet a nicer human being in this world. And he's I'll tell you, have you ever been to any of the PBATS meetings,
Mm-mm.
baseball? So Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Association has an annual meeting, and this one particular year, Stan spoke at it, and if I remember correctly, it was in San Francisco. It's always in a different major league city to host. And there's, I don't know, gosh, probably about 1,000 people in this ballroom. It's gigantic. It's all the people that are in every basically strength coach, athletic trainer, rehab person of any kind associated with every professional team at all their levels, lots of college people, and then a random person like me from the general public. And there's a ton of people, and most of the people in baseball, this is kind of the one time a year they see each other. So in this giant room, you got a speaker doing the full professional deal, and there's sort of the hush of a million small conversations very
Mhm.
quietly. And then Stan Herring gets up to speak, and you can hear a pin drop. No one else, and there was all the biggest names, had a silent room as much as he did. And
Wow.
all the accolades in the world. And if I call him by name, Daniel, my friend, how are you? It just couldn't be nicer. Remembers my wife's name, remembers my kids' names. He's one of the people that I made a point of saying goodbye to in person when I moved from Seattle to Phoenix, and just a gentlemanly man. But he has got a resume that will top anyone's, and
Yeah.
just as humble and nice and caring, happy to talk to anybody. So
Yeah.
for him as a role model, we'll call him a father figure because he's just a hint older than I am. But you just have to be like that, because anything different than that is not okay.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Trust Driven Insights, brought to you by TrustDrivenCare. Imagine a world where all your patient communication is in one place, seamless, effortless, and on autopilot. That's the power of Trust-Driven Care. If you're ready to streamline your practice, check out TrustDrivenCare.com and see what's possible. Trust-Driven Insights. Real conversations. Smarter care. Stronger business.